It's January 13th, 2022, and I just turned the basement faucet on a slow drip so that the pipes won't freeze. I too am running on a slow drip so that my pipes don't freeze. I am a young woman surviving breast cancer. My last chemotherapy treatment is in 6 days. 3 days after that is my 35th birthday. The pandemic has made it too risky for people to be with me throughout treatment, and that has made an already harrowing situation feel impossible at times. Last August, I underwent a bilateral mastectomy and I have decided to reconstruct my breasts. Although I have lost sensation in my nipples and the surrounding skin, I can still recall what my body used to feel like from the inside. I don't ever want to forget, and I also want to make peace with what it feels like now. Inside my night table, there is a white wire basket overflowing with orange prescription bottles that have accumulated since my diagnosis last June. It feels like a visual reminder of the calamitous and dizzying chain of events that have occurred since then. Sometimes I catch myself staring at it, arms crossed and head tilted, contemplating all it evokes like some enigmatic piece hung in the Whitney. Lately, it feels like I am standing under an avalanche of unanswerable questions. I don't want to fixate on it, but it's hard to look away. I feel like I'm a wobbly infant again, trying with all my might to put one foot in front of the other. Just before I began chemotherapy, I barreled through the fertility preservation process on an emergency basis. I am not currently in a romantic relationship, and every day I reel in my reverberating fears about intimacy issues towards a future that hasn't happened yet. My period has left the building, and as I lose the physical hallmarks of my female being, I contemplate the indestructible aspects of my womanhood. My mind drifts back in time. In the second half of my 20s, I began educating myself about cycle syncing because I was sick of having a combative relationship with my menstrual cycle. Back then, I couldn't fathom my period going anywhere anytime soon, and I was determined to treat it like a prize instead of a problem. Over time, I stopped dissociating from the hormonal shifts that occurred within me every month. I stopped dismissing those rotating waves of energy as an unfortunate part of my existence. I realized it was shame around having a cycle and not my cycle itself that interfered with my quality of life. So I rolled up my sleeves to dissect the roots and ramifications of this shame. One day at a time, I set out to cultivate a kinder dialogue with my body. By my late 20s, I resolved to compose my life around my cycle like a symphony. I identified the natural patterns and melodies within me and then built everything else around those fundamentals. I arranged my nutrition and activity around each phase of my cycle like complementary notes and well-timed key changes. In time, I discovered my ability to create a harmonious lifestyle by honoring the energetic ebbs and flows within me. Over the next several years, I practiced listening closely to my body's needs and responding mindfully. During this time, it was as if I was untangling a giant knot of upsetting questions. Why was a woman's cycle ever treated like something to hide or be embarrassed about? Why was it not until 2005 that a urologist mapped clitoral anatomy inside and out? Why are tampon brands not obligated to disclose a full ingredient list even though mainstream products contain chemical-filled materials? The more I nurtured my female needs, the more awake I became to the ways in which society did not. In my early 30s, I imagined how vastly different the world might look if women's health was researched and supported as a key ingredient in societal success. I dreamed of a culture that proactively invested in our well-being. I yearned for a country with leadership that harmoniously balanced masculine and feminine wisdoms. I longed for a civilization that understood and celebrated female pleasure. Like so many before me, I stitched myself inextricably to the fabric of hope. Now, in this unknown terrain of chemo-induced menopause, I feel a bit lost in the woods. For years, I treated my cycle like my North Star, and I haven't quite met the new me yet. Although periods are often associated with discomfort, the self-love I honed through cycle syncing had an indelible impact on my female existence. This bond with my body was also an act of resistance, a kind of impenetrable fortress to shield me from society's less compassionate modes of operation. Yesterday morning, I attempted to untangle a knot in my long hair, and the whole clump of it detached from my head as unceremoniously as a freshly sharpened chef's knife gliding through a sun-ripened tomato. 3 months ago, I lay on the bathroom floor after my final round of AC. My body drained dry after 4 days of being unable to keep down even a sip of water. I am recovering and discovering that I am not my body, my hair, or any other physical aspect of my vessel. I am love and I am consciousness that is connected to something much larger. My physical alterations are still in progress, and I am healing my heartbreak over the irreplaceable by focusing on the creative joy in reimagining the shape of my body. I am a highly visual person, and I am exploring what is pleasing to my own eye. This mindset requires daily practice, since the pursuit of seeing ourselves clearly is fraught with body politics. All of the internalized shame about how our body parts should look is like a thick smudge on the lens. Over a steaming cup of black coffee, I sit cross-legged in the kitchen as I gaze out the window. I am thinking about the state of negotiation a woman enters every time she interacts with her appearance and considers how others see her. I wonder what it would be like to not replace my breasts with anything, and I dig deep for what reconstruction means to me. While peeling a banana, I oscillate between dread, excitement, and apathy. Sometimes it feels like worry is eating me alive, and I catch myself slouching towards a fear that I'll remain forever frozen in grief's consuming wasteland. Since my mastectomy, it has taken me many months to look at my naked body in the mirror without wincing. I watch myself fumble towards reclaiming my female sensuality, the beautiful piece of me I fought to protect over the years through storms of jagged boulders hurled by institutional misogyny and rape culture. The fear of violence is a fact of my female existence. As an Asian American and Jewish American woman, I work to conquer that fear every day in the frightening face of rising hate crimes in the world. Every day, I witness the quiet and private moments of revolution inside of myself when I actively choose to keep my heart open. As I dress, I allow my tears and fears to fall ferociously like a tropical rainstorm. I am surviving the traumatic and brutal blows of shock, grief, and powerlessness that come with a cancer diagnosis. Again and again, I surrender to my disorienting new reality, the one in which my armor made of illusory control has turned to dust. I wonder when, if ever again, I will experience the human joy of feeling sexy in my own skin. My white blood count is currently dangerously low, and I head to the bathroom for my daily injection that will reduce the risk of a fatal infection. I sit on the lid of the toilet, and as I insert the syringe into my lower belly, I think about all the ways the female body is monetized and weaponized in society. I reflect on all the gains and pains underneath the crushing weight of unrealistic beauty standards. Like many girls do, I became hyper-aware of my appearance early and abruptly. Throughout my life, strangers have often asked me to explain the origins of my ethnically ambiguous face. As a young girl, this probing fascination with my exterior was confusing and uncomfortable. I recall a similar confusion and discomfort upon realizing there were loud choruses of voices in the world selling things to fix women's problem areas. I didn't have the language back then to call it out, but it made me sad that girls were systematically groomed to feel like they were never good enough. It made me queasy that there were entire industries constructed around this hurtful messaging. I splash my face with cool water and look in the mirror. Alone with my reflection, I consider how many works of art have been inspired by the female form. After all, it is one of the oldest and most common motifs in the visual arts. Images of women have long been produced and sold by men. Historically, the acquisition and ownership of such images was a man's business. I often ponder these power dynamics swirling around the female body like prevailing winds around the planet. I wonder how something so historically revered could also be so exploited and mistreated. Then I think about humankind's troubling relationship with the earth. I lay down to rest, and I notice my fingertips gliding over my chest. This happens often, and I know it's because I am subconsciously hoping for a miracle where I discover that I have regained sensation in this area. I think of my younger self and wish there was some magic potion to protect us from the contentious relationship that society has with the female figure. Curled up in the fetal position, I mourn the communal opportunity cost of this ongoing conflict. Inside of a long, slow exhale, I see my resilience clearly, and I begin to sense that the magic potion was in me all along. I do not know what the future holds for me, but somehow I know that no one, no thing, and no disease is going to stop me from celebrating my womanhood on my own terms. I stand tall in my humanity and the strength of my vulnerability. I will not be dissuaded by fears aroused by a woman who expresses her truth. I still see so much good in the world, and I also see with clear eyes all that it could be on the other side of some alterations. I am working on soothing my paralyzing anxieties about what lies on the other side of my own alterations. Some days I feel a spring of rejuvenation in the playful fun of reshaping my body. As I approach my 35th trip around the sun, I refuse to choose between being seen as a serious or sensual being. The richness of my existence need not be validated by another. I cannot control others' eyes that may or may not feast on me like the snow-capped Himalayas at dawn. I have climbed the mountaintop, and I know it is not the shape or size of my vessel that radiates beauty. It is the story of who I am that casts the light. Just as our Mother Earth manages to mysteriously hold an endless variety of endings and beginnings, of creation and destruction, of love and desire and pleasure and pain, of luminosity and shadows, so too shall I. Yes, so too shall I.